Hi Amelia and welcome to The Vice Online.
Thank you for having me.
So, I obviously know a little bit about how your journey began, but tell us, how did your journey in music begin?
In music generally, it goes quite far back. So obviously you knew when I was about 10, I started lessons, and about that age I was really into musicals. So I did local theatre productions, did singing lessons for a few years, and I always loved music, but I never thought it would be my career, to be honest. I just loved it and it was a hobby. But then when I was about 15 or 16, about 15, I'd already been singing jazz songs in the local cafe. I was a waitress and heard I could sing, and they're like, oh, do you want to sing for the customers on a Saturday night? And I had backing tracks and I loved doing it. And they got to a point where I thought, I love singing, but I want to accompany myself now. And I've never really done any music lessons in terms of instruments. I've always preferred the singing part of music. And I asked for a ukulele for Christmas because it was the cheapest thing at the time that you could get. That, I tried. I think we bought a piano when I was younger for a few hundred, and I never used it. And it was, my mum was like, "You're not doing that again. You learn the instrument if I buy you it." So we got a cheap pink one for Christmas, and I just taught myself that. And I think at the time as well, ukulele was quite a big thing. So people on YouTube doing it, and I just sat in my room for a few weeks and taught myself all my favourite songs, and then that became, again, just part of a hobby when I was a teenager. And then I started going to some local open mic nights and just playing songs, and I realised that I was actually people were paying attention and I was doing really well from it. And someone who owned the pub at the open mic, and I said, "Oh, will you play for me and I'll pay you?" And at this point I thought, getting paid to sing, I didn't think that was possible.
Get paid to do what you love.
Yeah, and I thought, I'm 15, I've only got a ukulele, how is this happening? And it was a dream come true. And it just went from there. I played at their pub, then another man saw me and said, "Oh, I've got a pub, will you play at mine?" And that's how I realised I could maybe do this. I still never believed I could do it as a career, but I thought, oh, I'll do this alongside my studies. And I just grew from there. It started off, I was very shy and I was just playing covers with a little music stand in front of me, and then I started writing my own songs, and I started doing gigs where people paid tickets to come. They weren't just random punters who were having a drink. And I just grew from there, and now I'm doing it full time.
So how did you get into the folk scene? Because folk music is your thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had, at this point, I was about 19 years old, and I'd only written one song at this point, and it's called Song of the Sea Rover, and it's very much a folk song when you listen to it, and not in the traditional sense, but it's storytelling. It's a bit of a sea shanty. And my manager, Andy, had seen an advert for the BBC Young Folk Awards, and he said, "Oh, shall we enter you?" And I remember thinking, I looked at my phone and said, "Yeah, go for it." I remember thinking, I'm not going to get anywhere with that. I'm not a folk singer. I've written one song, but why not? And then a few months later he said, "Oh, you've been selected as one of the semi-finalists." I was like, what? One of the songs we entered was a David Bowie cover, and I thought, how have I been selected? And I went down to the semi-finalist, it wasn't a competition, it was just a weekend of workshops. Everyone was lovely. It was Nancy Kerr and James Fagan who were the sort of mentors and taught us some of their songs, and we all did some jamming. And then I was selected as a finalist from that weekend. I went down to the Royal Albert Hall and got my song on the kind of Folk Awards album that came out that year, and it snowballed from there, because that was when I became not branded as a folk singer. So I still don't really, I just say I'm a singer. I don't say folk or indie or jazz. I just like to say I'm a singer. But if you had to say one genre, it would be folk. And I think it was from that, being in part of that scene, and then getting to play Cambridge Folk Festival, and you just become. I started writing more songs, and I became more involved in that part of the industry. Yeah.
And of course, you've had the opportunity to perform abroad as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've played that was thanks to the ukulele, most of the concerts, I think. Yeah, it was the first one I played abroad was in Berlin at the ukulele festival there. And then again, because you just do these gigs and you meet people, not because you think, oh, I might get something from them, you just end up making friends with people, don't you?
Yes.
And I met a French man who said, "Oh, I run a festival, would you want to play at this?" So I've been to France, then I did Prague this year, and also Finland, near Lapland, in the kind of middle of Finland in January, which was really fun, and Austria, and hopefully, some more next year.
Yeah. It's great. It's fantastic. So what about songwriting? So did that just come naturally to you?
It did and it didn't. It was, I'd always loved playing the covers that I was playing, probably again from the lessons with you, where I remember coming home and singing Nora Jones and stuff. I was like, where have you got this song from? It wasn't the typical songs you'd think of learning. And I've always loved my dad's music, 70s and 80s. And so when I started playing, everyone was like, you should write songs. And I said, well, why should I write songs? You know, Frank Sinatra never wrote a song and he was successful.
Yes.
So I was always a bit against that because I love playing my covers. But then one time I'd just been listening to some singer-songwriters and I thought, maybe I should try this because maybe I'd enjoy it. And I did, and I thought, oh, my actual own songs are getting just as much attention as the covers I'm doing. People want to hear my writing. And now it's it's quite a therapeutic process. I realised when I was ill the other week how sad I felt because I just couldn't write or sing. I just, I was just so
how
ill.
you vent and get your emotions out.
Yeah. And it's like that. I don't do much other creative stuff in my life apart from writing. So that's really nice. Everyone needs that sort of cathartic release, and mine is writing.
So for songwriting, is it the text and what you're trying to message that comes first to you, or is it the music, or do they come hand in hand?
I think it's
because different people work in different ways, don't they?
I've tried to put like lyrics to music, and that never works for me. It's usually I sometimes have a melody idea in my head, and then the lyrics will come, and then I'll fill the rest out. So it's usually I'll often have. I don't know actually, because when I think about it, like you say, it can happen differently. But if I'm thinking more songs that I write, I'll be sat with an instrument, my ukulele, and I'll be thinking of melodies in my head. Actually, no, I'm wrong. The music does come first, I reckon, but it can change once the lyrics are there. Then you'll change it a bit to fit.
Right. Okay. So it grows.
It grows. Yeah.
Yes.
So
it's organic.
A bit like when was it Paul McCartney sang "Scrambled Eggs" for Yesterday. You'll have like an idea, and you'll be. I've got nonsense lyrics in my head, and when I've written them down, and then when you think, oh, this could go somewhere, you think, oh, that lyric could go there, and then the song evolves.
So what about the story behind the song? Because your genre and your performances, they're naturally stories.
They often. Sometimes I'll be sat and I'm trying to write a song, and I think, what stories could I tell? And most of the time it'll be when I'm thinking about like things that have occurred to me in the last few weeks. If I'm in a writer's block, I'll say, okay, what did I do last weekend? And one of the songs I wrote, which I've never really released because it's sort of not finished, it was a song called Lavender Meadows, and it was when I was sat with my manager and I said, I don't know what to write about. And he said, what did you do yesterday? And I said, oh, I went to see my gran in the care home. It's called Lavender Court. And then we just...
Right.
He said, what details were from the day? And I said, oh, there was a lady with only one slipper on, there was a spider hanging from the wall. And we wrote this really cool song together about this one day, and it was a story about... It wasn't about the care home, but it was about that day, but... The song ended up telling this story about memory and aging and time, and it was
So that really resonated with you. Do you find all the songs you write have to have that personal connection?
I used to when I first started writing. Well, actually, my first songs weren't personal; they were just stories about. A lot of the things I write are dreams I've had, or books I've read and inspired by. So that Song of the Sea Rover was about a dream about pirates that I had. And if you look through my notes, it's like the scrollings of a mad woman because it's like pages of dreams that I wake up and go, I've got to write that down. And then last year they had more of a personal touch. I released an EP that was about like my grandparents and again like mortality and memory and time. The personal connection. I think I always try and tell stories, but then when I've had like writer's block recently, I just think, you know what, it doesn't matter what you write about, you just need to write, and then maybe there'll be a story that comes after that. Sometimes one of my songs, Perfect Storm, when I wrote it, I didn't really feel like it was about anything, but looking back, I think there was more of like a subconscious agenda at play while I was writing it, and it was about something, but not, it was a bit more abstract in the way I wrote it. There wasn't like, this is the story of this and this, it was just, it came out like that, and people then can put their own stories on that. But most of the time, all songs I think are personal if you write them yourself. They all come from you, so they have to have some personal touch to them, don't they?
Yes, they do. So, across your entire life so far, what's been your favourite musical moment?
Oh, that's really hard. Oh gosh. I think I couldn't pinpoint one. I think there's been a few moments where I've thought, like, there's a few when I supported Steve Harley in Cockney Rebel, and he said, oh, do you want to come play with us on stage? That was a really cool moment because I'd like admired that band when I was younger, playing Come and See Me with my dad, and then all of a sudden I was doing backing vocals on his tour going ooh la la la. I think being part of the English Folk Expo a couple of years ago, and being like mentored for the year, being selected for that was really prestigious, and I was really happy. And then more recently I've just finished recording my album with Bill Ryder Jones, and I think the album is just one of the best things I've worked on in my whole life, so I'm really excited to get that out and for people to hear what I've been working on. That's
great. And although you're still very youthful, do you have words of wisdom? What would you say would be your one piece of ultimate advice to somebody?
For people who are starting out in music, or just
or people who want to be, who would love to be like you, would love to sing on stages, would love to tour, would love to, be asked to play somewhere? Or
I think I'm trying to think of a succinct way to say it, but just like keep going, because I'm quite. People see me on stage and think I'm very confident, and I can be, but I'm also quite anxious, and I always worry about things. Like next year I'm thinking, oh, how will I tour this, or how will I get a band? I've always got worries, but you just got to like roll with it, keep focused on what you want, and you will get it. You just don't kind of let the voice in your head stop you from doing things, because you can do anything, and I know I can do anything, but sometimes I try and stop myself and say I'm not good enough, but you just got to believe in yourself.
So just dwelling on that a minute, do you find those demons in your head, do you find they're there often? Are they there constantly? Are they there sometimes? Are they there when you perform? Are they there before you perform?
Sometimes after. It's really strange. I'll sometimes do a performance where everyone else thinks it went well, and there's something for me I think, oh, I don't feel good after that. It wasn't my best, and it puts me off gigs forever, and I don't know what I can even. I've spoke to a lot of musicians who've had the same. I've watched them and gone, that was great, and they said, no, didn't enjoy that. There was something that wasn't right, and it can be really horrible, like making yourself go back on stage for your next gig when you've had that experience, but then you wait till that next gig comes around where you absolutely smash it, and you think, this is why I love doing this, because I do that concert, and yeah, there's always going to be bad days, and sometimes I get it before and after a gig. I think it's all the adrenaline, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And then you come home and you think, oh my gosh, all of that. You
deflate.
Yeah. And if it doesn't go as how you thought it would, even if the audience enjoyed it, if you don't think they did, it could be one little thing. It could be a person at the front who isn't smiling, and you think they're having a bad time, but they're not. It just, it gets into your head that you've done a bad show, and then. But no, I think I've done quite a few. Like the more experience I get with this, the more I realise that there's always going to be a few bad nights, but. I've never had a terrible gig, just I'm a perfectionist, so if it doesn't go as perfect as I want it, but yeah, the more you do, the more you realise.
I think that's the challenge of being a musician, though, because you practice to get better, and you're never finished, because there's always something more you can do. Yeah,
and sometimes it's out of your control, a bad gig, or if you've got a bad voice, that sometimes you can't always control how it goes. You can practice as much as you want, but the sound might not be very good one night, or people might not turn up. There's a lot of things, like in a lot of the arts, you just have to go on with the show.
Yeah. Amelia, thank you so much for joining us on the Master Online.
Thank you.